Please be seated. I have a confession to make. I thought that might get your attention. I have a confession to make. I am a professional musician. That's right, you heard me correctly. I am a professional musician. Since the age of 15, I've held positions as church organist, choir director, and throughout my 4 years of undergraduate study in music, I was a member of the National Cathedral Choir of Men and Boys. Then I went to Chicago for grad school in musicology, and there I served both as part-time and full-time positions as a church musician. Currently, I'm professor of music at Olivet College, where I've been for the past 20 years. I am a professional musician. One thing I discovered early on is that music is in my DNA. It is a part of who I am. I no doubt got it from my mom, who was a trained musician, and though dementia has taken almost all of her memory, she still remembers the alto part to every piece of music she has ever sung, whether it's hymns from the hymnal or the choruses from Handel's Messiah. I think about music, I listen to music. I don't just have it on in the background for noise, I really listen. I read about music. As a musicologist, I research music and have had the good fortune to present my research across the US and in Europe. I've had articles and books published on music. I even, as you might expect, married a musician whom I met in grad school. Some might say I'm obsessed with music. It's always been who I am. I'm a musician. Perhaps you too have a passion which consumes you. Maybe it's your career, your role in your family, something that you have spent most of your life doing. Maybe you've just found it. Something has called you and something possesses you. Your obsession. What about our life as a follower of Jesus? Does this consume us? Is this a passion for us? Or do we give it only an hour or two once a week on a Sunday, and maybe not even every Sunday? Maybe we take the summer off because, well, the kids are out of school, the weather's beautiful, and the church doesn't have air conditioning. Mother Ann would understand. Maybe we have a cabin up north. We'll get back in the fall. Where is our obsession with Jesus and the way of the gospel? I would suggest that it too is in our DNA. As Scottish theologian J. Philip Newell suggests, when we are born, we come freshly from God, and we are connected to the heartbeat of God. We spend our lives listening to that heartbeat, connected to God, so that eventually we return to that source. You see, it's in our DNA. But I tell you, it's not easy. The noise of the world blocks out that heartbeat. It obscures our ability to tune in to that sound of God's heartbeat. Maybe it's akin to being a musician. Lots of time in a practice room, all by yourself. Lots of quiet time spent studying in the library. Not exactly a way to meet people and make friends. Practicing something over and over and over again until you get it just right. Being a follower of Christ is tough, isn't it? As the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, reminds us, discipleship is a state of being. It's about how we live. Last week in the gospel, we heard that if we wanted to be followers of Jesus, then we must take up our cross and follow him. We have to lose our life in order to find it. Today, Jesus tells us that if anything gets in our way and causes us to sin, we must cut it off, tear it out. Better to be what some people might call physically imperfect than to be spiritually imperfect. Jesus uses this figurative and hyperbolic language not for us to take literally, but for us to take seriously. This, being a disciple of Jesus, is difficult stuff. Are we up to it? In the book of James, a book which is kind of a how-to manual for the early Christian church, we are offered some practical help on this difficult road to discipleship. We are offered some practical help. The author of James knows that it's tough. Throughout this letter, the author is realistic. He urges us to idealistic things, but his feet are firmly planted on the ground. He knows we will make mistakes and fail, just like the early church did. The author urges us on to be patient. He reminds us of the Lord's mercy and compassion. Today, we also hear about our responsibilities to one another. We are given instructions for prayer and praise of God. We are told to anoint the sick and pray with them. We are reminded to confess our sins to one another, just like we do every Sunday in the liturgy. And we are encouraged to pray for one another. My friends, in the closing lines of this letter, we are shown the love and vitality of the way of the church and the way the church is supposed to be. It's not just a once-a-week kind of thing, and then you're off the hook. It's a way of living. It's a transformed way of being. We become selfless so that we can serve one another. We work together for the common good. Being a follower of Jesus takes work, like being a musician. It takes practice. We're going to try and we're going to fail. We're not perfect. But that does not excuse us from trying again and again and taking Jesus seriously when he tells us to cut ourselves off from what causes us to sin, what keeps us from hearing that heartbeat of God, to get rid of all these noises. My friends, the good news is that we have a loving, life-giving, and liberating God who allows us to try again every day, every hour, even every minute. Following Jesus is difficult. Platitudes and warm, fuzzy phrases we see on Facebook or on wall plaques is not really the reality. The author of the letter of James knew this. Jesus knew this. Let us take that difficult journey, that journey which gives us life. Let us die to selfishness and to a myopic vision of the world. Let us be obsessed and passionate about Jesus. For after all, following Jesus, being one with God, our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, is in our DNA.